Hello, welcome back. Sean here, Mountains Garage. The end of my Thursday afternoon. Once again, the school bus will be along shortly, so I'll try to keep this brief. I have been working early mornings and late nights, distracted from cleaning, enjoying my new workspace. I have axle number 1, 98% finished. This was the new cast axle, probably imported, medium quality at best. I mean, I don't see anything physically wrong with it. It doesn't seem to be unsafe. I guess time will tell if it just breaks in half, but it's definitely big and rugged. But I had to tune up the holes for the spring perch. That's 11/16 drill. And a little bit of honing, and that fit fine. So I got the spring perches to fit. Same story when I went to put in the kingpins. Those are tight at best, but I'm getting ahead of myself. The split wishbones, last time you saw them, I had trimmed them off and was undecided on which kit I was going to use. I ended up finding and using the standard type that takes a Ford type tie rod, 11/16 18 thread. Some of the kits give you a right and left hand, which would be for a drag link or a tie rod end, just out of convenience. Other kits give you 2 right hand, which is what I have. I think I prefer that. I don't need a left hand back here for any reason. I'm not spinning the adjustment, which is why you have right and left hand threaded tie rods. This would be a drop it off the frame, take a turn or two, however you're figuring out whether the front end is square, and lock in the jam nut. The lack of jam nut is where I went wrong in my decision. The kit I got from my brother was unique and different, had a lot of pieces, but they were all there. I got this all together, I TIG welded it, came out really nice. And I realized I don't have any jam nuts. Now the bung into the old wishbone, the wishbone was pretty much round, and at the bottom where the welded seam is, it had a V. And the bung was loose, and I needed a way to center it, to weld it. I found a piece of 035 MIG wire. I put a new spool on the welder not that long ago. I saved what little bit was in the spool, in the gun. And it's handy. I made one wrap around the bung, twisted it at the bottom. That twist fit right in the V, and the 35 thousandths all around held that thing perfect while I tacked and welded it. And yes, forever haunting me is that piece that could fall down and be loose inside the wishbone. It doesn't matter. It served its purpose. It was a one-shot deal. Those are the things that trouble my mind, but I'll press on one way or the other. Those fit on the axle fine. I was pretty sure I could make this axle work. I had to make shackles for the spring. The spring is too narrow for the kit shackles like you can see on that axle over there, the silver ones. Those are 1.5 inches between it. That was a mistake in the last video. 1.75 inch wide spring, pre-35 Ford. Pre-1935, is the spring's 1.75 inches wide, but the perch distance is 1.5 inches between the bolts. Mine had to be 2 inch, so I had to gain 1 inch. So I cut the flat stock, clamped it, ground them all perfectly the same, and then welded the ends. So when I drilled a 1/2 inch hole in either end, and then ground the weld off, and they were all loose again, they were all the same. So I bought the A-end spec bolt. I spent $34 for 4 bolts. But I'm not putting threads through the nylon insert in the spring and the insert in the perch. It's all smooth, just like the shackles are over there. So that worked out pretty good. I see the kingpin holes I had to hone. I have a brake cylinder hone. It was a cheap imported thing I got when I was probably 20. And I just determined last night it's probably time for another one. This thing has done a lot of honing. Honing on steel goes okay, but The kingpins fit. They're absolutely rubber hammer tap down tight. The new spindles that I used on this axle had bushings already in them. I spent $100 and something for new spindles because I only had one set of genuine Ford spindles. And these all fit really nice. That actually saved me a lot of work. They give you an adapter. I bought 2 Speedway disc brake kits for a drop axle. They were on sale 2 weeks ago. They're like $339 for the entire kit. There's a lot of pieces in that kit. They give you an adapter to go over the early spindle. You have to drive out the race that comes in the rotor, the inner race, and they give you another one that looks almost identical, but it is a different part number. So I trust them that it needed to be changed. No big deal. Tap out the race, bang in the new one, pack the bearings. This is an area where it's basic knowledge, but nobody really ever told anybody how to do it. Most people understand they got to pack the bearing full of grease, but the cavity between the bearings, you need to fill that with grease. That seems to be an overlooked step. I take a lot of rotors apart, and they're dry in there. Picture yourself whistling through the desert on a 100-degree day. That grease is liquid in your hub. On big trucks, if you buy the lowest bid truck, it comes with greased front bearings. The next step up is oil bath. So that grease turns to oil. Heck, the stuff I got sitting on the bench there in the summertime will be half liquid. So you want plenty of liquid in there. So you have to fill the cavity completely. And when you shove it over the spindle, it's full of grease. And they give you a spacer on the outside under the washer for the spindle nut, but they give you all that stuff. They give you the cotter pins. I have a special tool I made, nothing but a piece of pipe to put the dust caps on. You just don't bang on the end of it. My buddy Charlie paid me what I think is a compliment this morning. He says, you know, you're more anal than I am. I guess that's a compliment. I won't call it a mistake, but for both brake kits, I bought Chevrolet bolt pattern, 4 3/4, knowing that the studs were going to come 7/16, because that's what happens when you order Chevy bolt pattern. If you order the 4.5-inch 5-on-4.5 Ford bolt pattern, or Chrysler, you get 1/2-inch studs. That's what I put on the front of my Model A. I prefer the 1/2-inch stud. For the other axle, the genuine Ford axle, I have, I believe, a set of brand new Speedway rotors, Ford pattern 1/2-inch stud out in the green box. So I will put, and that's got a Dana 60, I believe, 5-on-4.5 rear. So this particular chassis, the 9-inch Ford in the back is 4 3/4 Chevrolet pattern, and now the front's going to match. But it'll be 1/2-inch studs on the back and 7/16 on the front. I could change out the studs, but there's no need to. I just would have preferred 1/2-inch studs. I always like more thread. Speedway must cast their own calipers now. They say Speedway on them, and they're actually marked right and left. That's pretty handy. There's no clip on the inner pad. The bolt holds it from rattling. The bolts are high quality. The calipers went together nice. The only thing I don't like, because this kit gives you the brake hoses, it gives you the banjo bolt, the brass washers, everything. It even gives you the frame brackets and the clip to hook the rubber hose up on the frame. However, like most rotors, there's a little notch where the brake hose should stick through to kind of keep it from turning. It never typically touches either of the little pillars that are cast into the caliper anyway. The bolt holds it tight. So it's just a feel-good thing, but you can't point it at the axle. They have to come out at an angle like they are now. And they'll hook 360 degrees, but there's only one spot where they really ride pointing toward the frame. So that is what it is. There's no mention. The instructions are semi-complete, but there's no indication of that. Back to installing the spindle and the kingpins. The bearing goes in the bottom, and before you assemble it for real, you put the kingpin in the wrong way, set the bearing on it, and you can measure for the shim on the top. This axle took all the extra Model A kingpin shims that I had. It took 4 on each side, but she's tight all the way around. The last thing I did, clamp a couple pieces of aluminum angle iron to the rotor, and set the toe in 1/8 of an inch. I'll never need to go back to fix that. Nothing's going to change when I put it in the vehicle. Toe in's complete. It's that easy. Do it right here on the bench. It's kind of nice working on it, just like this. I turned you around. For the genuine Ford axle, I put the brackets for the hairpins. They technically are a wishbone. That was another mistake in the last video. It looks like a mini wishbone. I think they're called hairpins to be technical, but there's a simple little bracket that goes on the spring perch. And I had to mention I made a 1/4 inch spacer to make up for the fact this axle is only 2 inch. But the spring fit as it should. The kingpin fits the axle no problem. The perch bolts were fine. 94-year-old approximately genuine Model A Ford goes together easier than that brand new offshore axle. I assume it's offshore. Again, I don't know who made it, but there's no marking on it. Speaking of markings, both axles have a mark on the left front. I call it left front. I put the mark facing forward on both of them. You could probably turn the axle around, but I prefer to put it out. Last night in the dark with a flashlight in the snow, I went out to see which way the kingpin lock had to go, and it goes front to back. The nut is on the back side on both the axles I have outside. And I have genuine Ford spindles that some of the braking stuff has been roughly cut off. I need to finish grinding that, but I got my work cut out for me on this. This is the adapter Speedway gives you to adapt the disc brake kit on it. You just put it in the press and press that on there. No big deal. I have a piece of pipe that goes there. Press it down this way. I have to press out the original bushings, and in the kingpin kit they give you new bushings. Stand by for me to gripe. I've done a lot of kingpins. I used to work on big trucks, semi-style trucks. Old 100-year-old technology, you always had to hone or ream the bushing so it fit the pin. Now the pin's all the same size, the axle hole's the same size. For a transmission gear or whatever, I can just buy a bushing that actually fits and turns a lot more RPM than this steering, which only goes back and forth, not even 180 degrees. Why don't the bushings fit here? It's tradition, you have to ream them, I understand, or hone them. So I have to press them in, and then ultimately you'd have a hone that would go all the way through. My buddy Charlie just last week sent me a link on Marketplace for a giant Sun and Hone. It was for sale for $200 and something. Again, a massive machine. And as usual, I did talk myself out of it. That's not usual, but that would have allowed me to hone it once I got it all rebuilt and set up. Spend a few $1,000s on it. To hone this in one step, that's what something like that is for. It looked like a connecting rod hone, but it was actually made for utility jobs. Instead, you can use a brake cylinder to hone, but you can't do both sides at once, which you're supposed to keep it, concentric. Is that the right word? I did recently get a set of reams, and I think I have one that'll fit the hole. Now, back when I worked on semi-trucks and I had to do this all the time, the bushings on those are this big, but I had a brand new ream and I had it set so I could put it down through in one pass, and it was perfectly set for a standard size kingpin in a big truck, which is huge. When you use a ream, all your motion in and out should be rotating. You can't just pull it straight out. You'll just put grooves in it. But when you start from scratch, like I will, I have a ream. I think it's about the right size, but you've got to ease your way into it. I have 2 sets of bushings should I make a mistake, but I'm saving $100, I guess, and using the genuine Ford spindles on my genuine Ford axle. So in the end, it'll work out. If I wasn't so stingy or like to challenge, I guess I'd just buy another set of new spindles. But I didn't. So at the end of that, the school bus alarm went off, which shut off the video, but I'm just saying goodbye anyway. This is a genuine Ford axle. set up in the opposing vise in my new work area, and I'll get busy on that in my spare time over the next few days. Have a nice evening. Talk to you soon.